Hi friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm sharing a wood side table makeover that I picked up from the Restore. I originally thought I was going to paint it, but it ended up getting stripped with a Carbide Scraper. And if you hate using chemical strippers as much as I do, this video is for you. Plus, it turned out super cute. I don't even think you're going to recognize it at the end. Just let me get set up and I'll be right back. Let's start. Here's the fun part. Here's the table I bought from the Restore. It wasn't the cheapest. I paid $35, but it was an interesting looking table. I really like the details on it. I wasn't overly fond of this old stain finish, and there were some scratches that needed repair. When I flipped it over, I saw that it was a solid wood piece from Heirloom of Canada furniture manufacturers, which have been around since 1909. I'm guessing this table was made in the 50s or 60s. And seeing this tag on the bottom kind of changed my game plan, because when I originally picked it up from the Restore, I didn't really give it a good look, and I just figured I was going to be painting the whole thing. But now I wanted to reveal this beautiful wood and see what we had underneath. So I flipped it over and took a pair of needle nose pliers and started removing the staples that were sticking out from underneath. One, I didn't want to scratch myself while I was working on it, and more importantly, I don't want somebody to purchase this table and have an oopsie themselves. Then I went ahead and removed all 4 legs, and this was easy to do just by unscrewing them. Because this is such an old piece, and I do find working with older furniture can sometimes be very finicky, I took a Sharpie and I labeled the hardware, and I labeled the bottom, or I guess you would say the top of the leg as well, just so I could replace the legs the exact same way I took them off. Now it was time for really good cleaning. I used White Lightning and a smaller sponge just to get into all the nooks and crannies. I did the top, the skirt, and also the legs. Now for the fun part. Let's strip back this dated stain finish and see what we have underneath. This is my Carbide Scraper, and this is a tool with a blade tipped in carbide, a compound composed of carbon and metal. This makes the blade super hard and durable, so it's perfect for heavy-duty scraping tasks. On a past table that I scraped the finish off with this Carbide Scraper, it took me 20 minutes. That was a pretty old finish. I'll make sure I include an image of it up here in the corner so you can see which one I'm talking about. I'll also include a link down in the description box if you want to go see the full tutorial. But I was curious as to how long this finish was going to take, so I set my phone stopwatch just to see how long it would take me to get off all this finish. And the results are quite interesting, so more on that in a minute. So just a few things when I'm using this Carbide Scraper. For safety reasons, I find it important to have a stable work surface. Don't work on anything that is, wonky and gonna tip on you or whatever. And I make sure that the height is comfortable for me as well, because I'm using my arm's length and my body to actually pull this Carbide Scraper from one end of my furniture to the other. I start using it with a really light pressure. However, look at this tabletop. There was some sort of waxy, sort of thick finish on it. And the light pressure was doing basically nothing. I really had to apply some pressure to get through to this waxy finish onto the stained portion and actually remove it. Starting at, I'll say, the top of the tabletop, I run the carbide scraper all the way down the project in the direction of the grain at about a 45-degree angle relative to the wood surface that I'm working on. So this is what I do anyways, I try and keep it in one smooth stroke just so I don't stop midway, change the pressure, and then I might gouge the tabletop. So keeping it in one smooth continuous stroke is very helpful. And adjusting the pressure on maybe a part of it that is not scraping off easily is sometimes needed as well. And as you can see, maybe just do as I say and not as I do, because I found it easier not to go all the way to the end of the tabletop, and my workstation was not as stable as I would have liked it. So yeah, make sure that you choose a really, really stable tabletop to do it, and then possibly you'll have an easier time getting from one end of the surface to the other. I will say removing the finish rather than the stain, the actual stain, but removing this finish took more effort than I would have expected, actually. That said, I still find this easier than using a smelly chemical stripper, because that stripper would have needed the time to eat through this finish and it would have been messy, it would have been smelly. So this is a great alternative if you don't like using those chemical strippers. And it is kind of satisfying to see these ribbons of top coat and of the stain just kind of coming off like this. I find it fascinating and pretty satisfying. So I went ahead and worked my way around this piece. I do use it on the rounded edges as well, but as you can see, you have to take your time with that because it just takes off very little strip because you're working with a rounded edge. But the point of this is not to get everything perfect when using the carbide scraper. It's just to get this scraper to do the meat and the bulk of the work for you. And then of course I go in with the sander to finish and finesse everything up. And here's what I was left with once I finished scraping off the entire finish with the carbide scraper. And here's how long it took me, 54 minutes. This was way longer than I even expected, although this is a quick way of doing it. I'm not complaining because 54 minutes, like I said, is still a lot quicker than using the chemical stripper. It's a lot cleaner. I don't have the messy gook that I have to clean up, etc. However, I did the larger table in 20 minutes. So my point here is, depending on the finish that you're working with, because this was a darn sturdy finish on this table, will depend on the timing it takes to strip it off with these carbide scrapers. So I brought the tabletop into my sanding room and started sanding the underskirt portion just to clean everything up. And then I started working on the top, and I started with an 80 grit, then I went to a 120, and then I did a 220 on my orbital sander and also with a hand sanding. And here I just let my Bosch sander do the work for me, and it cleans everything up really, really nicely. I even use the orbital round sander for the underlip and to get into tiny areas as well. Now, I wanted to use the design of this table to bring out some character in it. So I went ahead and I sanded the top of the legs, and I sanded it to bare wood. And then I ended up scuff sanding the rest of the legs because I figured I was going to give the bottom a paint job and the top keep an all natural wood. Once I had everything scuff sanded and the bare wood portion all sanded down, I brought it back into my paint room and gave these legs 2 coats of this silk all-in-one mineral paint in the color called Anchor. And it's a true black. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous, real true black. So I went ahead and I painted 2 coats onto the legs, leaving the wood, the bare wood exposed up top. And then once again, I decided to use the natural design of this piece. And I thought, okay, I'm going to paint this little tiny middle section in Anchor Black as well. And as you notice, I'm not painting it perfect because I'm going to go in with the sander to get a nice crisp line, which I'll show you in a moment. And here's what all the 4 legs looked like, all painted up nice. I wasn't quite 100% sure about that little black portion in the middle of the bare wood on the top of the legs, but I thought I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to go with my gut and kind of hope for the best. I mean, that's the design of the table, so I just went along with it. The next day I came down and started working on this tabletop again. And once I had finished sanding it with the Bosch sander, I actually gave it a really good hand sanding as well, just to smooth everything out and get it ready for the paint wash. I brought it back into my paint room and it was time to start tying everything in with the black paint. And again, I used the natural design of this table to do so. Using Anchor, I painted the very bottom railing of the skirt along with those inner cutouts. I wasn't overly particular about getting a perfect paint job because to get a nice crisp paint line, I'm going to show you how to do that after sanding the paint off. So long as you have an edge that you can sand, this works perfectly. And here I'm using a larger brush, and as you can see, it is not going well. And I know I've said in prior videos, use the brush size required for the job, and this brush was much too large, so I swapped out this large brush for a nice sized artist brush that worked much better. The artist brush also worked much better on the detailing on the legs as well. Now for a sanding quick tip. Again, if you have a straight edge and you've over painted, it's really easy just to sand it down to get a nice crisp line. See how easy this is? And it works perfect every time. I did the same with the skirt for the black paint that kind of went over the lines. Here was a little more tricky because I was using my large orbital sander. It got the bulk of it off, but then I also hand sanded and did a little finessing as well. I love the natural color of the wood, but if I was just to top coat it at this point, the water within the top coat, or even if I was to use an oil-based, which would amber over time, but it would bring out the natural orange tones in the wood. And that's not what I wanted. I wouldn't have been happy with those results. So to keep this light toned wood color, I created a paint wash, and I used a little bit of this neutral sandbar along with a tiny bit of dried sage, and this green actually counterbalances the orange, any sort of orange that's going to come up. And I played around with the water ratio until I was happy. And this was a pretty darn close color to keeping the natural light wood color of this wood. To apply the paint wash, I used an inexpensive chip brush, and I just applied it all over the top of this tabletop. And then once I had it on there, while it was still wet, I wiped it back with a lint-free rag, which honestly, shop towels work just as well. I actually prefer using shop towels, and then you can just throw them away. But check out how beautiful it looks. It really, really keeps the wood looking very natural. And I couldn't forget the bare wood on the table legs, so I did the same with the wash on them as well. After I finished giving the paint wash to the top of the table, the skirt on the table, it was time to reassemble the piece, or so I thought. I went ahead and added the 3 legs back on, and then look what I noticed. This is a great reminder to myself not to take shortcuts, which I usually don't, but I don't know why I didn't think of painting the back of these legs black as well, because look, there was just a tiny little bit of the natural wood finish, the natural wood stain showing through, and that needed to be black as well. So off came the legs again, and we painted this black. And just as a reminder, because I know I've mentioned this on a ton of my other videos, if you want a nice crisp line and you don't want to muck up your work, come at that at an angle. When you're applying the paint, make sure your paintbrush is going at those edges at an angle, and it'll keep them nice and clean. Once I had all of the backs painted, I reassembled them, put them back onto the table, and doesn't this look so much better? The following morning, I came back down and it was time to top coat. And I used Dixie Belle's Gator hide, and I used it through my paint gun. If it's an open container, I always strain it prior to putting it through my paint gun, because you never know, you might have some gloopy globbies in there, and you certainly don't want that through your paint gun. I applied 3 coats of Gator hide. I let each coat dry a couple of hours in between, and I did give the 2 coats a very, very light sanding, and then I leave the last coat be. This gives the table a super smooth finish. And even though the Silk all-in-one mineral paint has the primer and the top coat included, seeing as I have my spray gun out already, I just give it that extra protection and give the whole table a spraying, because I want the finish on the whole table to be cohesive. So I'm excited to show you the finale here, the reveal. So just as a reminder, here's the before. And here's the after. And seriously, I think if it wasn't me that was working on this table, I might not recognize that it is the same table. It looks so different. And I can't wait to hear what you think. So what do you think? I think this table turned out so well. I'm really glad I went with my gut and went with a natural design on it. I can't wait to hear what you think, so please leave me a comment down below. Feel free to like and subscribe here on YouTube, and you can also find me over at salvagedinspirations.com, where I have over 500 furniture painting tutorials teaching you how to make your furniture beautiful. Until next time, have a fabulous week. Bye guys.